Hello again. Now then, we've got a different story today. Now, a lot of you folks watching this channel might imagine, everything is sweetness and light, and fun things happen all the time, but they don't, and to be fair, to appreciate the good things in life, you have to have suffered some of the bad things as well. And this was a bad one, right? Christmas 1983 wasn't a good Christmas. It was a Christmas with no money, and we just lost our home, and we didn't know where we were going to live, and Ruth was still earning money to keep body and soul together a bit, but it was a tragic winter. Our business had crashed, and as of course you know, if you have a mortgage nowadays, it says at the bottom your home is at risk if you don't keep up the payments. Well, we'd mortgaged our house to the bank to help support the business, and the business crashed, and despite some horrendous, marvellous efforts from all kinds of very supportive people, it folded, and so we were looking for somewhere else to live. And this is the story of Christmas 1983, when a good neighbour, a lovely lady, took us in and looked after us, and just did exactly that. And this is the story. Right, we're going to begin. This story is called Christmas with BERYL. It's taken from It's a Rum Life, Book 3, Ivy House Tales, 1970 to 1984. This story is from Christmas 1983. Drama and demise of ECYB. Our lorries were still travelling the length and breadth of the UK, delivering new tyres for clients in Liverpool and Brighton. These were tyres imported into the UK from Eastern Europe, Israel and India. These on their own were not going to be sufficient to sustain our future, and I was negotiating with other tyre importers with locations in the Midlands. Due entirely to the unbelievable pressure from our bank, the Tyre Manufacturers Conference National Tyre Collection contract had finally gone. With it, we lost our depot at Horncastle, and through accompanying litigation, some of our lorries. We still retained our original regular TMC collections from individual tyre retailers in the East Midlands, but money was tight and I could not sustain the drain of finance much longer. Midland Bank was still pressurising us to the extent that the family home was for sale to pay off our bank loan. At this time, we had some newish drivers, and collectively with the older ones, they had intimated they could do a better job than me. We arranged to change ownership, and the business was to be sold to them collectively, and they would pay us bit by bit for the capital asset value of the best lorries on finance. They were quality vehicles and had good genuine book value in excess of £15,000 each, and less than £5,000 left to pay on finance. Arrangements were made for the finance company and all our clients to the effect that the business was changing ownership. I took a week off to settle affairs at home and arrange an auction of surplus property that would raise some badly needed funds to keep the family in food. On my return, I found that just as soon as the transfer was legal and all clients made aware of the change, the new owners changed all the locks, and on the morning of my meeting to discuss final details, the 4 principal new owners attacked me with wooden clubs and defied me to cross the threshold. I had to take refuge in adjoining premises owned by a couple of decent local lads who repaired car bodies. I spent 30 or so very anxious minutes on the phone to my solicitor, who was fully aware of the circumstances but no help whatever. Eventually, the police extracted me, and I made my dazed and dumbfounded way home. The police also warned me best to keep away and not antagonise the new owners. I should have realised then how inept my solicitors were going to be on my behalf. Following on from this was months of communications between solicitors. My firm were particularly lacking in worldliness and understanding, finally managing, despite my constant urging to greater effort, to show their full level of inefficiency by allowing the culprits to sell the only main asset of the business, the lorries, just the very day they were clear of finance, and pocketing the not insignificant cash in the region of £25,000. In the meantime, I set up a small commercial tyre sales business and began to supply commercial haulage clients with decent second-hand tyres for cash. That business was trading sufficiently long enough to help me to buy Northcote. And then I had a better offer. Ken Rundle, my next door neighbour and part owner of the John H. Rundle business in our village, offered me a job. His regular driver, John, was diagnosed with cancer and needed some time away. I took on John's lorry until he was to return and began another amazing episode. The attack on me happened in October 1983. We bought Northcote in about February 1984, and I began working for Rundles and moved house all at the same time, Easter 1984. Christmas of 1983 will never be forgotten. We still had the awful problem of our farmer friend making demands on our property to get his own back for my actions as local parish councillor in re-estating our local footpaths. See the story litigation. Matters were far worse because I had finally lost my business and in unpleasant circumstances. My solicitor was worse than useless on my behalf, and the lovely Georgian family home of over 14 years had gone too. Even without the constant pressure from Midland Bank, without a decent income, I could not possibly afford to live at Ivy House. The costs of upkeep of a Georgian country house, even in the 1980s, was extensive to say the least. The mortgage was not huge, but it did not stop there. We had held that auction on the premises in November and sold all our movable assets, and this we lived on for 2 months, frugally. Christmas is coming with empty pockets, very little income and no job. One reason I will never forget that pathetic Christmas was because my sister phoned to say that as we could obviously not afford presents for her family, her husband and herself had decided they would not embarrass us by sending anything to us. She was married at that time to husband number 2, a dreadful clone of Arthur Scargill. Anything you said or did, he had done 10 years previously, and better, of course. Jane was not normally that bloody-minded, and we believed the Christmas present thing was all John's doing. It had not occurred to me that I should have signed on. I had never been in a labour exchange or job centre or anything like that at all in all my life. I had never been out of work, and the experience was numbing. BERYL came to our rescue. She lived in the Crescent, a line of houses built with the rest of our village of New Bolingbroke when it was created a new town in 1805 or so. The Crescent consisted of genuine London-style townhouses grouped together like a very small Royal Crescent of Bath, but very small. BERYL was a widow, and over the years I had written letters for her from time to time to help combat her own sticky problems. She was a real angel that Christmas. We weren't allowed to pay for anything, not that we could anyway. She fed us and warmed us and provided plenty of good liquor. She invited Terry too. Terry was our local mechanic and had repaired all our lorries and recovered them from peculiar situations. He was a good friend. For the big day, we all crammed into her large semicircular back kitchen. The huge Georgian-style property had been a shop in the past and was still virtually unconverted. We wrapped ourselves around her Arga stove and lapped up her delightful cooking. For a little while at least, we were away from the frustrations and problems that surrounded us. We were very grateful to BERYL for her kindness. There we are, that's the end of that little story. Well, there we are, that's the story about BERYL and Christmas in 1983. You can read all this, of course, in the It's a Rum Life books, and the links are coming up to all the story books and the audio stories and things like that. So if you want to follow this in chronological order, then you can read the books. They're free to download, and you can see what happens, when it happened, and follow the story along. So the links are coming up now. In the meantime, thanks for being with us today, and I hope you enjoy the story. They're not all as bad as this. Thank you.